This channel is not just about stories. It's about hidden codes, codes that lie behind the reality you live in. And perhaps, without realizing it, you've been trying to decipher them for years. Here, each case is a key, a clue, a mirror of what you may also be experiencing. Today, what you will hear seems impossible. But when you understand the universal laws, the impossible becomes just misunderstood. Do you feel like life is in a loop, like nothing changes, even when you try? What if I told you that a single action was able to break a 7-year cycle of living the same day? This story will move you, because maybe you are also experiencing something similar. Have you ever felt like you're reliving the same day, the same pain, the same feeling that something should change but doesn't? As if time moves forward, but you remain still inside? It was exactly like that with Thomas Bell, 38, an ordinary man from rural North Carolina. He worked as an IT technician at a public school. Simple life, predictable routine. From Monday to Friday, I woke up at 6:47 a.m. Always the same song on the alarm. Time, do Pink Floyd. Always the same sequence. Instant coffee, bread and butter, traffic, small technical problems, empty meetings, and, at the end of the day, that uncomfortable silence in the car, as if something was screaming inside it, but without words. Thomas was not unhappy, but he wasn't happy either. It was suspended, as if life got tight paws without warning. And the strangest thing? He knew that. I repeated in a low voice, every day, in the mirror. Nothing changes. Nothing ever changes. It was almost a mantra, an unintentional spell. And maybe that was exactly it. The years passed. 7, to be exact. And in between, nothing really new happened. No new love. No exciting projects. No travel. No discoveries. Just recycled versions of the same reality. Distant friends. Family on autopilot. And a body that began to silently get sick. Constant migraines. Inexplicable tiredness. Insomnia. And a nameless sadness. Thomas was trying to change. She signed up for courses, started therapy, made lists of goals at the beginning of each year. But a week was enough, and everything went back to the way it was before. It was as if an invisible force was pulling him back, to the same spot, the same place, the same me. A cycle without doors, a prison without bars. And now I ask you, do you also feel like you are stuck in something that repeats itself? That, no matter how much it changes on the outside, inside it remains the same? If so, right here in the comments. It seems like nothing changes. I read them all, because you are not alone in this. And watch until the end. What happens to Thomas will open a key that maybe is the one you're missing. Hit like now and subscribe to the channel, because what comes next could be its own turning point. For 7 years, Thomas would wake up and everything would seem the same. The same bed, the same alarm clock going off at the same minute. The coffee heated for exactly 2 minutes in the microwave. He always wore the same clothes, not out of habit, but because, somehow, everything around him seemed unimportant. The work? A repetition of commands, problems, and silences. The faces changed, but the feeling remained. And even when it seemed like something new might emerge, it dissolved before taking shape. It was as if the universe was ignoring his efforts, as if something bigger was holding the invisible ends of his life and saying, no, not yet. He tried to react. I really tried. He changed cities for a brief period. Read books about purpose, spirituality, productivity. He participated in retreats, talked to gurus, did meditation. But nothing really changed. It was like painting the walls of a house that was collapsing inside. The colors were beautiful for a while, but the ceiling continued to threaten to fall. And, little by little, Thomas lost faith. Not only in the methods, but in himself. There were days when he wondered if he was paying for something he didn't even remember doing. Like you're trapped in some kind of cosmic punishment for some hidden mistake. Dreams began to disappear. Literally. He couldn't remember the last time he dreamed something during the night. I would wake up with dry eyes, a tight chest, and a constant question. Is that all? But on an ordinary day, one of those days where nothing promised to be different, something inside him snapped. It was Tuesday. It was raining. Thomas was sitting in the car, waiting for the traffic light to change. He looked to the side and saw a poster on the wall of an old building. The letters were already faded, but one sentence caught him. Change one thing. Anything. And everything changes with it. He doesn't know why that sentence touched him, but it rang. Maybe because it was too simple to ignore. That night, he came home, and Instead of turning on the TV like he did every day, he turned off all the lights and sat on the living room floor in silence. That was it. It wasn't a ritual. It wasn't a technique. It was just different. For the first time in a long time, he didn't rush to anesthetize himself. It stayed there, feeling what was inside him, and it was a lot. Over the next few days, he began repeating this small gesture, consciously choosing to change one thing a day. A different route to work, a lunch in a place I've never been to, a conversation started with someone I used to ignore. Nothing drastic, nothing that screamed transformation to the world. But internally, something was changing. It was subtle, but it was real. And the more he allowed these little breaks in the pattern, the more signals started to emerge. Things that he wouldn't even notice before now caught his eye. Strange coincidences, strong intuitions, a feeling that maybe he was being watched by something bigger. And that something, finally, began to respond. And that's when everything started to change. And you? Have you ever had the feeling of being trapped in an invisible cycle? As if, no matter what you do, where you go, or who you are with, life continues to bring you the same experiences, the same feelings, the same endings? Have you ever looked around and thought, that again? That conversation that ends the same way? That project that starts off exciting and then goes downhill? That relationship that seemed different, but deep down, it was just another repetition of the same pain, with another name, another face. And the strangest thing is that, on the outside, everything may even be constantly changing. You change cities, change your haircut, start new routines. Sometimes it even seems like it is now. But then comes that old, silent feeling that nothing has really changed. That the void is still there. That anxiety still lives in your chest. May dissatisfaction follow you like a shadow. And the question echoes, why does everything return to the same point? A lot of people will tell you that it's bad luck, that it's karma, that it's just a phase. But what if it isn't? What if, like Thomas, your reality is just reflecting a hidden code that you've been emitting without realizing it? A vibrational pattern that was created years ago, perhaps by a pain that you haven't healed, by a belief that you don't even remember absorbing? What if that's why, even though you try to change the world outside, you keep attracting the same responses? The truth is that life doesn't listen to what you say. She feels what you vibrate, and that is brutal to face. Because, sometimes, we vibrate things we don't know. It vibrates fear even when it desires courage. Scarcity vibrates even when dreaming of abundance. It vibrates with abandonment even when surrounded by people. It's subtle, it's invisible, but it is powerful. And maybe that's why certain decisions that seem small, like the ones Thomas started to make, have the power to break an entire cycle. Not because they are big or extraordinary, but because they change the internal state. And the universe doesn't respond to what you pretend to be. It responds to what you pretend to be, really. And so I ask you, are you sabotaging yourself without realizing it? Is life trying to show you what you still need to heal through the repetitions that irritate you the most? Are you really stuck? Or are you just looking in the wrong mirror? Because that's exactly how it starts. With an uncomfortable question. With that discomfort that you try to ignore, but it's still there. Breathing that maybe there is another way to live. But first, you need to understand what is vibrating right now. And it is at this point that everything begins to reveal itself. Because once you notice the pattern, there's no more pretending you didn't see it. The law of correspondence says, as within, so without. As above, so below. And perhaps this is one of the cruelest and most liberating truths you can face in life. Because it means that your external reality, no matter how random or unfair it may seem, is not shaped by your words or promises, but by what you actually feel, believe, and repeat. There's no point wanting peace if inside everything vibrates in chaos. There's no point in wanting love if you still feel unworthy of it. There's no point saying, I want to change, if you keep making the same decisions with the same fear as always. Life does not respond to your superficial will. It responds to your deep frequency. And Thomas, for years, lived exactly in this place of vibrational conflict. I wanted to break out of the cycle, but inside I still believed it wasn't possible. He wished change, but his actions were still guided by discouragement, by routine, by a kind of resignation disguised as realism. And that is where the law of correspondence acts silently. Because reality can only mirror what you and not what you pretend to be. The universe is literal. He doesn't interpret your intentions. he translates your vibration. And it was when Thomas, in a small but authentic gesture, chose to act differently, that everything started to move. His action was not great. It wasn't impulsive. It was silent. It was symbolic. But it was real. As he sat down on the living room floor, he turned off the lights and decided to feel. Without running away, he broke a pattern he had been harboring for 7 years. For the first time, his action was aligned with a genuine desire to awaken. And that is what the law of action requires: vibrational coherence. Because every action is a language. And when it comes from the right place, from an inner truth, not from despair or a duty, it changes the field. The law of action is the sign the universe is waiting for. It's as if saying, now yes. Now you are willing to be what you ask for so much. And then, reality responds. Sometimes slowly, sometimes like an avalanche. But it responds. Because aligned action breaks the stagnation. But it needs to be real. Thomas started like this. 1 step a day. A non-standard choice. A different response to the same stimulus. And each micro-action was like a stone thrown into the mirror reflecting his old identity. Over time, this mirror began to bite. The repetitions began to lose strength. Strange coincidences began to increase. It was as if, finally, the universe had realized. He's not repeating it anymore. He is creating. And that changes everything. What seemed like bad luck, stagnation, was, in fact, a reflection of who Thomas believed himself to be. For years, he was not experiencing an external curse. He was trapped in a silent script written by his own beliefs. The repetition of days, the feeling that everything was returning to the same place, was not punishment. It was vibrational correspondence. Life was just obeying a code that he himself fed without realizing it. And that was what shocked him the most when he started to see the changes emerge. Because they weren't spectacular changes, full of light and fireworks. They were subtle, but powerful. Suddenly, he started having different conversations with people who always seemed indifferent. The boss, who rarely listened to him, started asking for his opinion. An old project was reactivated out of nowhere. He received an invitation to speak about technology, something he always wanted, but never had the courage to pursue. And, most symbolically, the dreams returned. He would wake up remembering images that looked like messages. I felt that, finally, I was being guided by something bigger. But the truth is that something bigger was always there. He was the one who couldn't access it. The big turnaround was not outside. It was inside. When he understood that the universe does not punish, it only mirrors. And if his reality was gray, repetitive, and stagnant, it was because, inside, he still carried the faded colors of an identity that no longer made sense. The biggest loop was not the routine. It was the mind. And by breaking this internal cycle, the external one began to give way. Because the universe is accurate. He's a mathematician, and it vibrates at the exact frequency of your state of being. The definitive change did not come from a new job, a saving love, or a miraculous course. It came from the courage to do different from within, to look honestly at your own repetitions, to admit that, yes, there was a part of him that was creating all of this, not out of malice, but out of habit, out of fear, out of conditioning. And that awareness hurt, but it was liberating. Because from the moment he admitted that he was also the author of that script, he gave himself permission to rewrite it. And here comes the real spiritual plot twist. Reality is not holding you back. She is revealing you. It is showing every day, with every detail you experience, who you are inside. And that's a gift in disguise. Because if the world is a mirror, then you have never been at the mercy of chance. You always had, even if silently, the power to change everything. But this change doesn't start when everything improves. It starts when you decide to be different, even if the world still looks the same. It was like that with Thomas. And maybe, if you look closely, it's starting to be like that for you too. If this story awakens something inside you, write the word here in the comments, I broke the mold. This simple statement sets your energy into motion and shows the universe that you are ready to create something new. Leave your like now and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving content that speaks directly to your soul. And keep this in mind. In the next episode, you will learn about the case of the woman who wrote everything she wanted to live, and every word became reality. But what seemed like a miracle actually reveals a deep secret, the vibration behind the intention. And when this is understood, Manifesting stops being random and becomes power.